So this is going to be a brief lecture on just some tips and tricks for working with 3D animated models, and some other kind of interesting 3D stuff. So when you're working with an animated character in 3D, um, it's pretty much the same as working with an animated or with a model itself. They just also come with animation data. Um, so what you will see when you work with 3D models is they have a file format. I keep opening the wrong Godot. And actually, while we're doing that, what I'll do is, if you are good at 3D modeling, obviously you can create your own models and stuff. But for all intents and purposes, it's a lot easier to work with an existing 3D model. So you'll see that these models have the same sort of file format, right? They have this GLTF extension or OBJs or FBXs. Those are all 3D file formats. And again, you just sort of drag them and drop them into your scene. And this is really creepy. But here we go. We have this guy. Um, and if you right click and sort of make them local, we can see that the way it looks is these are just meshes, right? So we have these like shoe meshes or whatever. We have this cigar mesh, right? These are all just individual like 3D shapes. The only difference is that they also have this node called a skeleton. And you can kind of see that the skeleton itself, like, is kind of like this big sort of chain of bones and stuff, and they're all kind of connected together. And in order to like actually work with animations, you use an animation player, which we've already looked at, right? An animation player is a node that can animate any property of a node. And so what the animation player does is we just sort of animate properties of the skeleton node, right? So we have these different uh like tracks for the different bones in our animation, and they just kind of like you can manually keyframe and create your own animations, or if you get an animation from online, you will see that they kind of like they come with a bunch of keyframes and stuff, right? And so a question that you might be having is like, where do I get this stuff, right? Where do I get an animation for a character? Where do I get a character that has a skeleton? And one of the easiest places to get characters that are ready to go is a website called Mixamo. Has anybody used Mixamo before or heard of it? It's like it's owned by Adobe, so you do have to log in with an account, but it's free. Like you don't need to pay, you don't need to have an Adobe subscription. They just want like a email address, I guess, somewhere. So like I have this Adobe account that doesn't have any money. Like I don't pay them, but you just log in. And then when you go to Mixamo, what happens is you are greeted with this sort of web page where you have a loading screen that eventually loads the page where you can see you have like all of these animations on the left and this like sort of viewer on the right. And Mixamo has two things. They have a database of characters. So they probably have a couple hundred different 3D models of characters that you can use. So you can like click on a character and like use this character or whatever. Um, it's usually faster. It might be because we're doing a Zoom call right now that it's sort of running a little slower. But you load in your character. Here's a white guy with dreadlocks, so that's kind of a problem. We'll get a different character. We'll use I don't know. Anybody see any characters they like? Let's go for Sporty Granny today, right? So I'm going to use this Sporty Granny model. Um, you can also, well, okay, so Mixamo has a bunch of models on it. That's one helpful part of it. But then really, I think the most valuable part of Mixamo is that they also have this gigantic library of animations. And while they only have like, a couple hundred animation or models, they have like a couple thousand animations. We have 52 pages of about, 50 or 48 animations. So you can do the math. We have a bunch of different animations. And what you do is you can just kind of like search for a type of activity, and then you just click the animation that you want, right? And then we see that our model over here is doing that animation, right? So somebody give me like an activity that you want to see a model do. See if we can find something. Like what might you want to have a character do in your game or something? Huh? Mario? Oh, like the yeah, like a coin jump maybe? Or like a Mario. I'll search for Mario. We'll see. We kind of have like or like that's Mario sort of does like a you want to think less of like the character and more like what's the thing that they're doing. So I guess Mario is like jumping and punching. So I'll search for like jump punch. Um and this is like not exactly correct. Here, wait, whoop. But you could always take this and work with this, right? Instead of punching down, you could sort of move the fist to punch up. So I'll start with this one. I will take this animation, and all you have to do to get this character with this animation is you just click download. And if you're getting the character for the first time, you probably want to get it with the skin. And so you just hit download, and then we download this FBX file. Um, Somebody give me another activity that we want to use. See, you like eating. Squat? Sure, we can do a squat. Squat. Right, we got a bunch of different squats. Let's do like sure, let's do this squat for some reason. Right, so I'll download this squat animation. And if I already have downloaded the model, I can just do it without the skin. So this is just going to get the animation data. So I'll download that as well. And then when you're ready, you literally just go and drag and drop the stuff like we've been doing. So I will do this. Um, we have all of them. Flying knee is what it's called. Okay, so we get our this one and this one right here are two animations, right? And I'm just going to take it and drag it into the Gato project. And then back in Gato, we just import it. It'll take a minute for the first time because it's model. But let's say I'll just delete this. I'll just go and find it. So here it is, our flying knee punch combo, grandma, crazy grandma. Um, so here she is doing her classic T-pose. But if we make this local, you'll see we have all these different, right? We have a couple of different pieces. This one has less meshes, right? This is mainly just a body. Oh God, that's actually kind of horrifying. Wait, let's see. This is sort of like a, hold on. So here's a really creepy like grandma face. So this is just like a mesh of like her face and her body. But we have this animation player, and you see that we have this animation by default. And if we just play it, right, there it is, right? There she is punching things in 3D. Um, if you want to bring in multiple animations, right, or other animation, what we want to do, it's a little bit more complicated. We actually just want to go to the Import tab. And then instead of importing it as a scene, we want to import it as an animation library. So we're just going to change how Godot is sort of interpreting this file. And so we're going to re-import it, and you'll see that it changes from a reel to sort of like these circles, right? This is like the symbol for the animation library. And so now inside of our animation player, we can go to animations, manage our animations. We can add a library, and we can use this animation library. Okay, and so now you can see that we have this other animation down here, which is like our air squat animation. Okay. So working with animations is pretty straightforward. You just need to sort of uh, the way that you call these animations is just like sort of playing any other animation from either an animated sprite or a like an animation that you make, right? You would just with code say animation player dot play and then the name of this animation. Um, and then finally, really quickly, I'll just prove to you what's really nice about Mixamo is if you have like a 3D model from somewhere else, like let's say go to itch maybe, and I'll just search for some game assets, 3D, um, maybe like yeah, let's see if we can do these robots. That'd be kind of interesting. And these are animated. That's kind of fun. So then let me see what else we can do. Maybe here's some zombies. They might not be animated, so I'll try downloading these zombies. No thanks, I'm broke. Download the package, unzip the package. Um, so these are kind of these OBJ models, right? So I'll take this, like, let's say you have a model from somewhere else that's not on Mixamo, basically. If you want to work with it, you can always upload a character, and then you can sort of just drag and drop. I wonder if we can also take the material. I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. Yeah, that's probably okay. So let's just take the OBJ, try this out. What? I know I said I would do this quickly, and now I'm getting sucked in, so I'll keep going faster. Take your OBJ, drop it. So when you have a 3D model, right, what you can do is first it asks you to like orient it. So it wants you to have it facing us. It wants it to be in a T pose. We'll see if that's possible. But then you just do chin, right? You kind of like take, you can kind of basically attach these to any model. So for instance, we can do here and here for the elbows and here for the knees and here for the groin. And then let's see if this works if it's not in a T pose. Yeah, actually, that worked kind of great. So now you can see that we have where to go. Where no. Oh Lord. May need to refresh. Shit. Ugh, I don't want to do it again, but you basically drag and drop a model onto it, and then you can use any of the animations on the site, right? So it's really useful because, right, oftentimes you might be having like a 3D character and you want to have like a different 3D character than one of the characters that they have. But you can still use Mixamo to like attach your 3D model and animations together. So Mixamo is super useful if you're ever going to do 3D animations with characters. Um, the next sort of thing I wanted to show you is pretty cool. Just heard about it today from Games from Scratch. For starters, if you are interested in games sort of news, particularly like how to make indie games yourself. Games from Scratch is a really great resource. It's mainly a YouTube channel, but then it's also a blog with all of the sort of things of the YouTube channel. And he just kind of covers like all of the stuff that's kind of happening in the DIY game engine space. Like if you're trying to make games from scratch, he talks about all the different changes to software and different deals that are happening there's all sorts of free giveaways of like assets and stuff that are good to know about. So this is a really good resource for just sort of keeping up to date with like some things that are happening. And what I just learned about today is a cool plugin called Gaussian Splash. Does anybody know what a Gaussian splat is? Anyone heard of Gauss? Yeah? What is a Gaussian splat?
Research about that because my AI research
Yeah.
that they use. I think I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
Like there's some um mathematics kind of stuff that counts out. Um, is it alpha level?
Maybe. I know actually very little about Gaussian splats, so I'm hoping you're telling me.
So like, cause normal 3D stuff
Yeah.
apply math signal on it.
Right, exactly. On a mesh, on a polygon. Yeah.
Um, quickly because
Yeah.
them and they can
Yeah.
instead of using a lot of mesh, they combine them into like a spot.
Yeah, what I sort of know about it is it's almost like instead of a mesh, right, a shape with a material on it, it's almost like they capture a bunch of like 3D pixels, like a lot of different dots and their color values, basically. And then they use sort of AI to smooth that all together into an object, right? So it's a technology for capturing the real world 3D, similar to radiance fields. Oh gosh, there's a bunch of complicated stuff, right? But if you see these examples, right, we have this like this is a photo that then got sort of scanned and turned into 3D, and it's essentially like a way to have really realistic looking 3D that would be very hard to model, but to actually have that working pretty quickly. And it's sort of like a cutting edge new way of working with 3D data, and in a very exciting uh, development, there's now like a really nice plugin for just using um, these sort of objects in Godot. So for starters, the if you're interested in looking at Gaussian splats, a really nice website is called Supersplat. Supersplat is sort of like a it's almost like a stock for, it's like a bunch of different people who like upload their Gaussian splats or whatever. So for instance, if we're here, right, we load this little splat, and then this looks like a photo, but it is in fact, this is like a 3D space that we're able to navigate around, right? Um, and the sort of more detail you do, the better it looks. So you can tell that like, but it also looks kind of glitchy in this kind of really beautiful way, actually. It's sort of very sketchy almost. But we can kind of see, right, this person took a couple pictures over here, but like a bunch of pictures over here. This is like a whole sort of like 3D environment which we can just kind of like move through, right? Or let's see, where's another one? Let's try this. I don't know. I don't know which one's going to be too big. The problem is these can be pretty big files, so you want to be careful when you're working with them. But let's try, sure, let's try this one. That's very nice. So, right, this is like a really interesting way of working with, if you want to make a game or something that has like actual 3D like stuff from the real world, you can go out and scan environments pretty easily and convert them into these models, basically. Um, or you can even use these. So let's try doing this. Let's try downloading this model. Or do I need to log in? Okay, I'm not going to make an account, but what I'll do is go and get the plugin. And while we're here, it's a good moment to talk about plugins. Have I already demonstrated how plugins work? We've talked a little bit about them. I know some of you have used them for your project. Plugins are really, really useful for doing all sorts of things to like extend and enhance the capabilities of the game engine. So I will call this like 3D plugin demo. I'll save it into the desktop. Um, I'll make this the forward plus render and hit create. And as you sort of may have seen, right, we have this asset library where you can find a whole bunch of different plugins in order to like make Godot more powerful, right? One that you guys have already poked around with is Dialogic. Dialogic is like a, did you guys like using Dialogic? Alan? Yeah. What did it do for you? Like, how did it help your process?
Always not clear about like who's gonna say this and who's gonna do that
Right.
in code.
Yeah.
You can just like write in the code
The text, right? Like, yeah, Dialogic specifically is a tool used for like creating complicated dialogue scenes with like lots of characters or choices and stuff. And in order to work with it, all you need to do is click download and then install it, and then you can like actually use it as a tool in the editor. Similarly, this Gaussian Splat plugin, let's see. This is called Godot Gaussian Splatting. So just going to look for this in the asset library or GDGS. Okay, it might not be in the asset library yet. So if you ever want to work with an asset library or a plugin that's not in the asset library, you can just go and get the code. So I will download it. And this might take a minute because there are some Gaussian splats in here, meaning it would, oh, it's done. Okay. Um, so we just go and find this plugin. Here it is. We double click it to unzip it. Then you just take the whole folder and can drag it into your Godot project folder. Oops. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's do this. Sessions, right? I'm gonna go to today's folder. Here it is. Now I'm just going to drag all of these into here, right? So I've brought in a couple folders of files. Then once you have brought them in, right, any plugin needs to live inside of a folder called add-ons. And then oftentimes in your project settings, you just need to go to the plugins and enable the plugin. It's just going to take a minute to import these Gaussian splats, it looks like. So now you can see we have this sample. We have these sample files, and these are some of the file types for Gaussian splats. They're called .ply or SOG files. I don't know why they're called that. But I believe for this plugin, we just need to do Gaussian splat node, right? So plugins can add new nodes to the editor. They can add new tabs. So what this particular plugin does is it adds a new node called Gaussian splat node. And you hit create. And then we just load in our Gaussian splat file, which is in, let's see, we might need to, let's go to samples, assets. Let's try this and see if it works. Here it is. Here, so you can kind of see right here are all of the like points of it. So it looks kind of weird. I don't exactly know how we get it to look good, but I think what we do is we just add a camera. Here's our camera. And well, maybe it won't. We'll see. I might be missing a step. I'm going to add a light and a sun. And let's just try rendering it and seeing what happens. No, nothing. Okay, I was wrong. What's the missing step? Let's try this. Uh, I'll try the SOG instead. Okay, that's the blue one. Maybe PLI. No, they both look the same. Okay, well, there's something that I haven't done yet in order to make this look good. But that's why you always want to read the README. Um, so you do that, and then we add a Gaussian splat node, assign the imported resource to the Gaussian splat, add a world environment, create a compositor. I see. I see. Okay. And where is that? It's in add-ons. Okay, so for this one in particular, we want to just do a little bit more where we create this fancy thing called a compositor. This is doing the activity of actually like combining all this data into a visual representation. So we just create a compositor effect, and then we set its script to this, I guess. So yeah, we create a new Gaussian effect. Okay. Maybe that'll work. Let's try it again. Hey, there we go. Wow, cool, that worked. I'm sort of surprised by that. And now you can see that we have this like really kind of high definition, uh, like 3D model, that looks very realistic in a lot of ways. I know that, yeah, that also got wonky, but we can get even closer now. Oh, and it even works in the editor. This is great. Now we can actually see it, right? So like, right, you can kind of see it's got like a lot of really crispy detail, which is nice. And there are ways to very easily like go and scan an environment and turn it into one of these file types and then bring it into the game engine. So there's a lot of really interesting things you can do with the editor once you start looking at plugins. Another really interesting type of plugin is like, particularly if you're interested in 3D, is a terrain editor. So you can go search for terrain. There's a couple of different terrain editors. The one that I've used the most is, I believe, this Terrain 3D plugin. But there's a number of them. You just download it. Right, if it's in the asset library, it's a little bit easier to install. You just find it and hit download and install. And then it crashed Godot. It's okay, ignore. God darn it. I have to get rid of this bug now. Nope. Oh, it keeps quitting. That's exciting. Ooh, thrilling. So sometimes when your project crashes, it's like, hey, it was breaking. Why don't you try editing it in recovery mode? So I'm going to do that. Um, um, okay, everything seems fine. I think it just got confused because I already had an asset or an add-on folder. So I'm going to go to project settings and go to plugins and then enable the terrain 3D plugin. Because let me just try turning off recovery mode. Ignore. Something got broken. Oh my God, now we're over here. Well, maybe this will work. Um, sure. So here's our Gaussian splat. Here's our project settings. Here are our plugins. Let's see if we can turn this one on. We can. Okay. So something is just kind of confused behind the scenes, but it's fine. And with our terrain 3D editor, we have the ability now to create terrain. So you create a new terrain node and then hit create. Come on. There we go. Then we have this sort of like big empty field, right? And what we can do is very easily like make mountains or valleys. You can sort of flatten things. There's like all these sorts of tools for creating really kind of interesting shapes. And let's see if you want to. You have specific brushes too. So these are the types of shapes that these brushes are making. So this is great for like doing things like creating mountains or big open worlds, right? So I'm just going to kind of make like a nice little mountain area, right? Whee! It's very fun to do it this way too. You just kind of make, yeah, it's cool. So you can kind of make whatever environment you like. You can also do things like erosion, so you can simulate what it would be like if water kind of like softened your stuff. Then you can apply textures and paint to them. So we can do, if we go to the textures tab, you can add a texture. You can change what the texture is. What's the easiest way to do that? I'll use this ground that it comes with. I'll also give it the, uh, oh, get out of the way, me. We'll make sure that it has the right normal texture as well. So we'll do quick load ground for the normal texture. Now it kind of looks like it's actually capturing the light a little bit. And then I can also do another texture. Oh, don't panic. Okay, good. We'll edit it, edit this texture, replace it with the rock, and I'll replace this with the rock normal. And so then you can kind of like paint on, let's see, different types of texture. So you can do things like make sort of terrain that is like has different levels to it, right? Or like, you know, you have like snow-capped mountains or a rocky mountain and a grassy field, right? Um, you can do all of that pretty easily with these types of tools. You can even do things where you sort of like add meshes, like little 3D objects like plants and stuff, and then you can kind of scatter them all around. I'm not going to go to the trouble to like actually set up these meshes, but you just kind of import them down here and then you can kind of like put them in your environment. So again, right, this is a plugin that is free to use and it doesn't, you know, it's stuff that it doesn't come in the editor by default, but it just by adding these to your project, you can do things to really kind of like improve and enhance your workflow. So are there any questions about how to work with plugins in particular or how to sort of like get them to appear in your project or what you might use them with? Okay. Um, yeah, final thoughts? Any final questions? Okay. Um, the final sort of little demo I want to do today is a VR demo. But I think I actually want to take a couple minutes to make sure I have that set up. So why don't we do this? We'll take a 10-minute break now, and then when we come back, I'll show you some VR. And then after that, we will just do project time. Yeah? Cool. I'm going to pause recording. Mahira, I'll leave the Zoom open, but I'll start talking again in about 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.